Hey everybody, so welcome to TE Walks. We're going to be doing a special thing today. I'm going to be riding on a bike and giving this tour. I wanted to show you what it was like for pilgrims getting to the Vatican and St. Peter's Basilica. So join me as we are going through on the road, the main pathway. Imagine being a pilgrim and taking months walking here to get to Rome, of course, and then to St. Peter's. Look at what we see in front of us. This was the ancient mausoleum built by the Emperor Hadrian in 138 AD, but later on, and especially here, is what he saw. Gregory the Great was on a processional praying to God to finish the ending of a plague, and he had a vision. He saw the angel Michael, the archangel, appear on the top of this ancient mausoleum and sheath his sword, and once the sword was sheathed, miraculously the plague finished. And so thereafter, it was a way for him to kind of incorporate an ancient Roman ruin, is what the popes would do. Now we're walking over the original bridge that was still built in 138 AD. It, of course, has been changed around. Look at these angels. They're holding the symbols of the Passion of Christ. And then out towards the way, and I'm working around with my camera, so I apologize for this. We're looking at our destination, the Dome of St. Peter, St. Peter's Basilica. Imagine, I don't want to sound too irreverent doing this, but imagine when your kids and family, everyone's walking to get to Disney World, and they see the castle. This is what it was like for centuries for many, many important people. In fact, on this bridge in 1450, during the Jubilee, part of it collapsed. It was a tragedy. It was overcrowded of pilgrims trying to reach, because this was really the only bridge that you could get to the Vatican. It was the quickest way to get to St. Peter's Basilica. So let's just stop for a second and get a closer view. There we go. You can see St. Peter's, the dome, is under restoration. It's being cleaned for us right now. Let's just listen to a little bit of the street music that's playing. All right, everybody. So I'm doing this towards St. Peter's Basilica again to promote that as of March 15th, we're going to be putting on the virtual tour of St. Peter's Basilica in two parts, parts 1 and 2. Now, right where I am, right here, was where there was an area of something very interesting. There was once a pyramid built that got torn down in about 1499 partially, and then definitively in the mid-1500s, the Meta Romuli, the supposed pyramid or tomb of Romulus. So we'll learn all about that on my virtual tour. This road right here was the Via delle Conciliazioni. It's the road of the reconciliation between the Vatican State, the Church, and the Kingdom of Italy. It was something that happened where the popes refused to acknowledge Italy as a kingdom. It took them about 59 years, and then this was built to commemorate that. Now, it looks lovely, but you have to imagine that when they decided to do this, they destroyed many beautiful buildings from the Renaissance and the Baroque time period, including Raphael's studio and home. And Bernini, who designed St. Peter's Square, he really didn't want you to have this effect of seeing the church from very far away. He wanted you to be walking through the streets as if they were a labyrinth. So remember that a Baroque artist like Bernini, an architect and sculptor, wants to work for the dramatic effect. He wants you to be shocked and surprised. So you don't know what to expect as you're saying, okay, I'm near St. Peter's. What's going to happen? When am I going to see it? Where is it? What corner do we have to turn? And then from here, boom, this is it. All on top of us. The dome, the obelisk, and his square, which many people kind of say, they compare it to that. The square with all of these columns is so beautiful, these colonnades, that's something that couldn't match up to the ancient world. And who can ever forget the Swiss Guard? Now remember, guys, Michelangelo did not design those outfits. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Turn the corner, and we're getting to our destination, St. Peter's Basilica. Now we'll go up to the facade. Hey everybody, thanks for joining our 3 Through Eternity TE walks. If you haven't guessed already, well, one should never take a lower end camera shot, but I have a mask on and some glasses. But I mean, isn't this amazing? I'm at the base of the facade of St. Peter's Basilica. Guys, I had such a great time with Graceland last week that I thought we should come again, because this is kind of an opportunity that's really once in a lifetime. I mean, look, I'm almost completely alone in this place. So here we got St. Peter's Square and its obelisk, or the needle, St. Peter, or the witness to his crucifixion, right behind me. Anyway, so we're going to go inside the church. I figured if we can give tours inside the church, that it wouldn't be so bad if we filmed respectfully and silently inside. So join me as we're going to walk through into the greatest church in the world. So if you guys can see right behind St. Peter's Square, the colonnade, there are the beautiful umbrella pine trees on the Janiculum Hill. Pine trees are actually suffering from a parasite this year, so a lot of them have been cut down, unfortunately, especially around the Colosseum. Anyway. And up above, further in the back, is where we have the papal private apartments. These side walls that have just been restored have a wonderful optical illusion that Bernini set up that I like to talk about on my virtual tour. We'll talk more about it because they have to deal with the fact that the facade is too wide. Wow, look at this. Boom. Let's take a look at it, of course. All the way again, up in that balcony, that's where the Pope makes his first appearance and gives a blessing, Urbis et Orbis, to the city and the world. And right below it is this message, right? It is Jesus giving the keys to Peter. With these keys, you'll have the power to bind and to rend on earth and in heaven. What you say on earth goes to heaven as well. Remember that this church, even though it is not the seat of the Bishop of Rome or the Cathedral of Rome, is very important because it is the legitimacy that God has deigned for Peter and the people who have succeeded Peter. That is the argument here. Okay, we're gonna go inside. Everybody, so we are in the narthex of the church. I just wanted to say that I do want to point out a few things. I wanted to take a little whirlwind around Door of the Filarete, which was from the old Church of St. Peter's. And then we're going to also look at a few other things, but I just wanted to show you that I'm really here. All right. So, as many people don't realize something, the fact that St. Peter's, the old church, has many pieces that thankfully have been preserved for this church today. It was a church that was profoundly ancient and profoundly important for people. It was very controversial to destroy things. Now, this door was actually done for Eugene IV, Goldamer. He was at the behest of this pope, and it was 1433. It actually took Filarete over 12 years to do it. Now, it's really interesting. It's controversial. The artist Vasari apparently didn't like it too much when he spoke about it in the lives of his the artist. Well, you know, it could have to deal with the fact that you have a bunch of pagan symbols connected to ancient stories
written by Ovid, like Metamorphosis. We can just look at this stuff here. It's amazing, guys. This is why it took 12 years to do. Just look at the acanthus tendrils going through. And then, of course, you have these panels where we have the martyrdom of Paul. He is being in the process of being beheaded. If you look closely at his neck, the artist has depicted him saying he's already had one attack, one gash in his neck. And then it's also very strange to depict Nero, especially on the doors of a church, of a very important church. Well, it's all kind of starting to commemorate a thing that hadn't happened for over 80 years, which was the coronation of the Holy Roman Emperors. And we have this being depicted in this panel right here, which I will talk more about in my virtual tour. Another thing that I was studying about this, which is so amazing, I never understood it, what seems to be behind Paul is this writing that is seemingly Arabic. Well, the incredible textiles were being brought over from the Far East. And what Filaretti is trying to do is he's trying to recreate a tapestry, a textile of great value hanging behind the popes, Paul and Peter. He's taking tools to chisel them out in the bronze. And the Arabic is kind of this fake Arabic that he used to define the textile and where it was coming from. And you could also see it on Peter over here. And you can also see that Eugene IV is touching the keys of Peter. Do you know that Eugene IV in the 1430s, he's the first pope to really use the keys as part of his coat of arms? This is so interesting. And we have apparently over 20 different portraits of emperors. Up here, there's supposed to be also Filaretti's self-portrait. Look at this. I just love this. And when we're rushing through, you know, we just don't have the time to get up close and personal to these beautiful pieces. And the fact that he makes the figures of Mary and Christ quite three-dimensional, that they're popping out from the door. This is all very important to recognize the fact that the Pope is the man who crowns the Holy Roman Emperors. Well, after this, so the event happened, then this was done. As I said, it took 12 years. And then they only had one more coronation of a Holy Roman Emperor after that that happened in St. Peter's. Again, still in the old church, not in the new church of today. When you come, you would also see through these doors a beautiful statue done by Gian Lorenzo Bernini, and it is of Constantine himself. It's really wonderful to come here at 10 a.m. because the light shines through. And on the opposite side, we're going to be seeing there's also a significant figure who came here and was crowned, Charlemagne. See, the light is coming towards him, so later in the afternoon it will be shining on him. The Baroque artists love to work with natural lighting. So, again, we see John the 23rd, who started the Second Vatican Council, commemorated here. And let's walk in to the church. All right, guys, so we're going to be walking into the church. I just want you to see if you gauge the effect of the immensity of this amazing place. So here are the keys. Peter. see ahead of us the canopy, the baldacchino above the Papal Altar, and the dome with the light shining through. And over to the right, Pietà by Michelangelo, done when he was 24 years old. We see ahead of us the canopy, the baldacchino above the Papal Altar, and the dome with the light shining through. And over to the right, Pietà by Michelangelo, done when he was 24 years old. So if you look, here we have the measurements of St. Peter's Basilica. This time my shoes aren't so squeaky. It's 186 meters in length. Now, there are barriers there to protect for the flow of traffic, which we don't have that issue for today. But within this, in the central nave, you would see the measurements of all the other greatest, largest churches in the world. When we get closer, I'll show you some of them, including St. Paul's in London. This is also the spot, a disc of red porphyry. They also say to represent the blood of the martyrs, the bones that were brought to the church. But it was also the spot initially in the old church where Charlemagne was crowned the first Holy Roman Emperor in 800 AD. Right here again in the center. All right, guys, so I've passed the Pietà and where John Paul II is laid to rest, but these are sacred places, really, so not proper to talk, but wanted to give you a good viewpoint in the central part of the nave. And you can even see from up here that where there is this white arch in the ceiling, that's where Michelangelo's church with a Greek form cross was supposed to have ended. And you can look at the pilasters here. There's like an additional quarter added on to the left on that pilaster, that flattened column that doesn't exist here. In the central nave, you have the founders of the various orders of the Catholic Church. I also mentioned that I would show you where you could see some of the other measurements of the other churches written out. So let's take a look at that right now. Okay, so here we are. See if I can get my hand out. You have here the Sanctuary of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, which is measured at 139 meters. Gotta be careful I don't trip on these barriers. Wanted to get to some of the more famous ones, which is right over here, measuring at 130 meters, is the Basilica of Notre. So all of them are listed here. It's kind of a way of using architectural dominance to verify this was the largest church in the world. So I thought it'd be great. Let's just take a quick stroll. Get kind of this inspiration of why the domes are here to represent a perfect sphere. Well, it is a perfect sphere, but it represents really heaven, paradise. No? So you come up on it, and then we get in to right below, or as close as we can to where the lantern is. Stop right there because I'm getting a little dizzy. Okay. And then we have the Evangelist in mosaics based on designs. Well, the church dome has mosaics by Cavaliere d'Arpino. So we have Matthew. John is right here. By the way, to give you an idea, the Baldacchino itself, we're looking at the top of it. It's about 100 feet tall, 30 meters. Here we have Luke. And finally, Mark. Now these pillars also have to have some of the most important relics of the Catholic faith. And we have statues represent the saints connected to these relics. Saint Longinus, my favorite statue in this church, done by John Lorenzo Bernini himself. Saint Helen. Further out, we have Saint Veronica. And Saint Andrew. Now, up in Veronica's pillar, there's a series of domes and a massive chamber that I really want to go and see, because inside it they have a model made of wood of what the architect Sangallo the Younger had made to be his idea of St. Peter's when he was the chief architect. We are now looking at the Ciborium. It is below here that would bring us the closest one could get to originally where St. Peter was buried and his bones were brought back there. And this is the Papal Altar. And then we have here the Cathedral, the chair of Peter that has been covered over by John Lorenzo Bernini. It's magnificent. So now we're in the transept to the right of the Baldacchino. This is an area, I'm right by the barrier, because we're not allowed to go in here. You can go in here if you would like to go to confession. These are all wooden confessionals. It's amazing they're actually built to measure into the bases of the pilasters. You can go to various languages and also for the different orders of the Catholic faith. Again, looking at the view of these amazing pillars. And to the side of the Baldacchino, maybe many of you have already been to St. Peter's, but I guarantee you, every time you come in here, you will see something new. Maybe many of you didn't know, but at the base of the Baldacchino columns, the wonderful Solemnic columns that Bernini was inspired by the ancient church, the original church by Constantine, we have the coat of arms of the Barberini Pope. And there's a famous story because of the coat of arms at the top. Right over here we see the face of a young woman who is in pain, and a mask that changes as well. There are 8 different versions of this, 2 at the base of each of the 4 columns, and they actually are connected. I will talk about them on my virtual tour, but even here, look at the profile of this. Okay? Because they even say that the profiles change. So look at another one right here. This is the profile of the other one at the base of this column. There's Veronica Statue in the background, so we're behind the Baldacchino. And here again, we can see her face is different here, and the mask at the base is different as well. here we are at the apse of St. Peter's Basilica, again with the wonderful cathedra, or chair of Peter, and the 4 doctors of the church, 2 Greek and 2 Latin church. The Latin church doctors are the ones with the mitres on their heads, St. Ambrosia and St. Augustine. This is where we have High Mass every day at 5 p.m. And I really love the funerary monument of Paul III and his mother and sister being depicted here. His sister actually was originally not wearing clothes, that was later on covered up. We also have Urban VIII, the Barberini Pope, the Bumblebee Pope. Lighting is dark here, but there is actually Bernini's first use of something in all these wonderful funerary monuments. He's recreated an angel of death, a skeleton with wings, writing Urban VIII's name in the Book of the Dead. The cathedra itself, if you guys can look very closely, it has candlesticks on it. Okay. Because they have the Feast of the Chair, I believe it's the 2nd of February, they covered this with candles, enormous candles, and light them. So here we are at the base of one of the other pillars with the statue of Veronica, and up above we have her veil, which was an extremely important relic that has been used in St. Peter's Basilica since, I believe, the 9th century onwards. Now, apparently, I've never been able to see it, but I recently saw a photograph of it. They would display the icon with the veil inside it. But if you look ever so closely, you can see that she carries the veil. Christ wiped his face on it, and miraculously, the image was imprinted on the veil, and they have recreated that for us in marble. Can you see the face? So here on the other south side of the transept, we have an altar where they give Mass 4 times a day, 9, 10, 11. They should be giving a Mass at noon, but obviously things have changed during the time of the pandemic. But this is the spot that is closest to where Peter was supposedly crucified. Outside of this point, there was the Obelisk of the Vatican Circus. And then a beautiful piece that has just been restored. It just glows. Was done by Alessandro Algardi, who is a great sculptor who was in competition with Bernini. Let's say Bernini won out, but it's magnificent. I just wanted to point it out. It is an event in the life of Leo the Great. His remains are buried below, with also that of Leo III and Leo IV. He is the first pope since the church was built in the 328 AD. He died in 410, but he was the first pope after the church was built who decided, instead of being buried at St. John of Lateran, to be buried inside this church, establishing a very important precedent. Alright guys, so I'm inside the church, and our last shot inside here, we're going to be walking towards the grottos and going down the stairs. Okay, again we can see the baldacchino, the high altar of the Pope, and then the famous statue of St. Peter's right behind me. Let's take a switch around on this. Remember when I told you about the Feast of the Chair, when the chair gets covered in candles? Well, this also happens that this statue that was saved from the old church, done by Arnolfo da Cambio in bronze, they dress him with the papal robes. You can see a medallion depicting Pius IX up above. I believe it was in something to commemorate the fact that he had the longest reign of any pope, 32 years, but it was when he completed over 25 years, which was supposedly the length of the time that Peter was Pope. So now, just going to take a shot of me walking down the stairs to one of the most interesting areas of the church. I really think the grottos. And the entry now is under the statue in the pillar of St. Andrew. St. Andrew. And then we shall say goodbye to the church for the moment. Remember that you can get a totally different experience of this place when you would come in at different times of day as the sunlight shows through. Remember, this section was done at the behest of the Barberini Pope Urban VIII, whose symbol of his coat of arms was bumblebees, which we can see everywhere you look. Bumblebees, even up at the top. Spectacular shot. All right. Let's go down the stairs. See you on the other side. Hey everybody, we've just left the sacred part of the grottos, and they're showing you what the old church of St. Peter's looked like. It's actually very interesting because, remember, the construction of the church was over 120 years from back to front. Here's a plan, a map of the church by Constantine. This shows you what Paul III in 1538 had to deal with. The fact that they were constructing the church and builders and beasts bringing marble, etc., were actually going through the part that was maintained. He decided to set up a dividing wall. And they discovered when they were building this quarter, part of the dividing wall over there to the left. And they have also preserved the base of two of the columns. So if you look at the way the columns look right here, look at the base of these columns. We're going to walk by them. So here we have one of the columns from the original church. Remember I said, this brick right here shows you where the level was of the floor level of the original church. Here's where I'm standing below here. This is the dividing wall built in 1538. So behind us while they're constructing the new church. Here's a peek above, looking into the church where we just were. At the base of the second column. All right, guys, well, I've just exited the grottos, and I would say that this is a wrap. Before I go, just wanted to show you the handiwork of Michelangelo. I always say some of the best of his stuff you could see in the back of the church. And they're in the process of cleaning it up. I just exited out from over here. That's the entrance to the dome, excuse me. My exit was a little further. That place, right there, those two people are coming from. That's the exit out from the grottos. And of course, can we afford to miss something else? The Sistine Chapel above, right next to the church. But you have to get to it by entering through the Vatican Museums. All right, thanks again for joining TE Walks. Please let your friends know. And please, guys, if you're interested, I will be doing my virtual tour quite soon. We're going to announce it. We'll send it out in our newsletter and let everybody know. Tell everybody about it, because all the profits from the virtual tour of St. Peter's Basilica that I'm doing are going to be going to help out the company in this time of need. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much for your attention, guys. Ciao.